The Miller farmhouse stood alone, a solitary figure in the vast expanse of the countryside. A sentinel in a sea of swaying corn, it watched over the land with a silent, stoic presence. Time had weathered its timber frame, each year etching deeper lines into its structure. The paint peeled like scabs, revealing the raw wood beneath. Windows, like vacant eyes, stared out at the endless fields, reflecting the passage of countless seasons. It was a place forgotten by time, swallowed by the heartland, where the whispers of the past lingered in the air. And yet it was alive, with memories and echoes of lives once lived within its walls. The Miller family, chasing a dream of a simpler life, bought the old farmhouse, hoping to breathe new life into its tired bones. John, Sarah, and their two young children, Billy and Emily, arrived on a humid June morning, their hearts filled with hope and anticipation. The air, thick with the promise of rain, pressed against them, as if the very atmosphere was trying to warn them of what lay ahead. A sense of foreboding, heavy and unwelcome, settled over their hearts, casting a shadow on their dreams. They were home, but the house didn't want them there. It stood as a silent guardian of its secrets, reluctant to welcome new inhabitants. The walls, once vibrant with life, now whispered tales of sorrow and loss, as if the house itself mourned the passage of time. As the Millers explored their new home, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were intruding on something sacred, something that didn't belong to them. They found old photographs, remnants of the lives that had once filled the rooms with laughter and love, now faded and forgotten. The Millers sat together, contemplating the journey they had embarked on, wondering if they could ever truly make this place their own. The first few days were deceptively peaceful. The family settled into their new home, enjoying the serene surroundings and the fresh country air. It felt like a perfect escape from the hustle and bustle of city life. The children, enchanted by the novelty of the countryside, chased fireflies in the twilight. Their laughter echoed through the fields as they explored the magical forest nearby, their imaginations running wild with tales of woodland creatures and hidden treasures. But the house, silent and watchful, began to stir. It was as if the very walls were waking from a long slumber, whispering secrets that had been buried for years. Soft, unidentifiable noises drifted from the attic. At first, they were barely noticeable, just faint rustlings that could easily be dismissed as the wind or the settling of the house. Floorboards creaked underfoot, even when they were alone. The sounds grew more frequent, more insistent, as if someone or something was moving through the house unseen. Booster, their loyal German shepherd, grew increasingly agitated. His ears perked up at the slightest noise, and he would bark at shadows, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a nervous energy. He would stand at the foot of the attic stairs, hackles raised, a low growl rumbling in his chest. It was as if he sensed something that the rest of the family could not, something lurking just out of sight. At night, the house seemed to sigh. The once comforting creaks and groans of the old building took on a more sinister tone, filling the darkness with an unsettling presence. A deep, mournful sound that resonated through the floorboards and wormed its way into their dreams. It was a sound that spoke of sorrow and loss, of things long forgotten but not forgiven. John dismissed it as the settling of an old house. He tried to reassure the family, explaining that old houses often made strange noises, especially at night. Sarah, however, felt a chill crawl down her spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to the noises, something that defied logical explanation. An unease that she couldn't shake. It was as if the house was trying to communicate with her, to tell her something important. something she needed to understand before it was too late. As days bled into weeks, the disturbances escalated. One evening, Sarah awoke to find Emily sleepwalking. Her eyes, wide and vacant, stared straight ahead. She walked with an unnatural grace towards the attic door. Sarah, her heart pounding in her chest, managed to guide Emily back to bed. Emily, still in a trance-like state, whispered, "They're calling me Mummy. They want to play." Meanwhile, Billy began having nightmares, terrifying visions of shadowy figures with eyes that glowed like embers. He would wake up screaming, his small body drenched in a cold sweat. John and Sarah tried to reassure him, but their own fear was a tangible presence in the room. The house was reacting to their fear. It fed on it. The walls, once merely old and creaking, seemed to pulsate. A viscous black fluid seeped from the cracks, smelling of damp earth and decay. The children's laughter, once a source of joy, now echoed through the house like a lament. John, his skepticism crumbling, tried to rationalize the events. Sarah, however, felt the truth closing in. The house was alive and it was hungry. Their nights became unbearable. A symphony of scratching, whispering and mournful cries filled the air, echoing through the dark corridors of their once peaceful home. The sounds seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, making it impossible to find a moment of peace. Lily Bailey. The walls, they were breathing, Mummy, they were breathing. It was as if the house itself had come alive, its very structure pulsating with a sinister energy that seemed to mock their fear. The children, their innocence shattered, refused to sleep alone. John, his face etched with worry, began boarding up the attic door every night. He hammered nails into the wood with a desperation that spoke of a man on the edge, hoping to keep the malevolent forces at bay. A futile attempt to contain the evil that permeated the very fabric of the house. The malevolent presence seemed to seep through the walls, an invisible force that could not be contained by mere wood and nails. John Bailey, I have to do this, Mary. We can't let it get to them. His voice was firm, but there was a tremor in it, a hint of the fear that he tried so hard to hide. Mary Bailey, I know, John, but what if it's already too late? Her eyes were filled with tears, her voice barely a whisper, as she voiced the fear that had been gnawing at her heart. One particularly harrowing night, Lily screamed for Mary. When she arrived, Lily was sitting up in bed, her eyes wide with terror. The room was cold, an unnatural chill that seemed to emanate from the very walls. Lily Bailey, the walls, they were breathing. Mummy, they were breathing. Her voice was a trembling whisper, her small body shaking with fear. Mary Bailey? Oh, Lily, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. She held her daughter close, trying to offer comfort, even as her own heart pounded with fear. But deep down, Mary knew that the nightmare was far from over. The house had become a prison, a place where fear reigned supreme and escape seemed impossible. Every creak, every whisper, every shadow seemed to be a reminder that they were not alone, that something dark and malevolent was watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. The storm arrived on the anniversary of the day the house was built. It was as if the house had a malevolent awareness of the date. Wind howled like a banshee, whipping the cornfields into a frenzy. Rain lashed against the windows, mimicking the sound of clawing hands. Inside, the house groaned and shuddered. The black ooze flowed more freely, pooling on the floor like blood from an open wound. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something ancient and evil. The power went out, plunging them into darkness. Then they heard it, a deep, guttural growl that seemed to originate from the heart of the house. The boarded-up attic door bulged inward as if something massive was trying to break free. Panic seized them. They were trapped. John Bailey, as John, "We have to get out of here." John, his face ashen, gathered his family around him. "We have to get out of here," he whispered, his voice tight with fear. But it was too late. The attic door exploded inward. A monstrous form, all teeth and claws and glowing red eyes, emerged from the darkness. It was vaguely humanoid, but twisted and grotesque, the embodiment of the house's malevolence. Screams filled the night. John Bailey, as John, "No, stay back!" John fought back, desperation lending him strength, but it was no use. The creature, with a guttural roar, descended upon them. The darkness swallowed them whole. "Malevolent spirit, your souls are mine." The next morning, the storm subsided. The sun rose on a scene of unimaginable horror. The farmhouse stood eerily silent. The Miller family was gone, vanished without a trace. Only whispers remained, tales from passing travellers who claimed to see flickering lights in the windows, or hear the faint sound of children's laughter carried on the wind. The Miller farmhouse still stands, a monument to the darkness that resides in the heartland, a chilling reminder that some places are best left undisturbed. Some houses, it seems, are meant to be tombs.